I've got a question for you. Have you ever had a piece of meat cake? Meat cake is what you find when you open up the fridge, you get down, you look at the very bottom shelf, and in the back, you pull it out and you look at it and you think, this could be meat or it could be cake. Either way, you're not eating it, right? You throw it away. My name's Janet Gibson with Batt 12 Ops. We are a volunteer organization out of Los Angeles, and I'm here to talk to you today about a topic that's very important to me, and that's food waste. In this country right now, we are throwing away 80 billion pounds of food every year. That's enough to fill the Empire State Building 1,000 times. This is personal because it means that each one of us is throwing away about 219 pounds of food each year. That's $1,600 a year per family in just produce. It makes up about 40% of the entire food chain supply. According to the Department of Agriculture, a single person in this country is spending between $165 and $345 a month just on food. Yet we're throwing 40% of that away. So not only is that a financial issue, but that's a landfill issue. Right now, 50% or more of everything that's in the landfill is wasted food. So when you pull out that celery and it's wilted, or you pull out that lettuce and it's got a slime on it, it's not just a matter of you taking that from the fridge and throwing it into the trash. It has implications because now we've got methane, we've got carbon issues, all because you and I are wasting food. Now, there's so much that we can do to prevent this. A personal thing that I like to do is every single week I sit down and I do an inventory of what I have in my house. What do I have in the fridge? What do I have in the freezer? What do I have in the cabinets? And from that inventory, I create a meal plan. What can I make with what I have right now? And only if I need to go out to augment what I have in order to make that meal plan do I go shopping. And when I go shopping, I make sure I have a list. But I'm not so structured that I will only buy what's on the list, because sometimes, you go to the market and there's a killer deal on something and you should get it. But I think sometimes people get that Costco mentality where they buy so much because it's a great deal and then they bring it home and guess what happens to it? It goes bad and they throw it away. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple tips today on some things that you can do, some things that you can look at that might help you when it comes to food waste. And if you're a vegetarian or a vegan, you might want to turn your head for a couple minutes because we're going to talk about things like chicken. Right, when you buy a chicken and it's sitting there, you've got a couple options, right? You can do the standard thing like cut the breasts off and cook it and use it for sandwiches and cut the wings off and make wings. But what about the liver? What about the neck? What about the kidneys? Well, guess what? You can add little bits of that to your meatballs, and not only are you not wasting them, because frankly, you and I, we both know, you look at that and you throw it in the trash. That's not right. It's power-packed as far as nutrition, but also keeps that out of the food waste, helps your family, you add it to the meatballs, no one even knows it's there. That's pretty cool. But now what? You've used all the meat. Well, everybody knows that when you have chicken bones, you make stock. The real cool name now is bone broth. Well, this has been around forever. Well, the thing that's a little bit different about stock versus bone broth is you cook that for a long time. You put it in a crock pot and you cook it for 20 hours. And when you do that, guess what you can make out of the stock or the bone broth? Well, you can make things like soup. Well, I don't know about you, but when I make soup, I make a ton of it. And my husband is not really thrilled with eating soup for like 3 days. Well, here's a little tip for you. You can take that same soup and add some coconut milk and some curry powder, and now you have curry. My husband doesn't mind eating soup and then eating curry because he doesn't know that they're the exact same thing with a couple other things added. That's pretty cool. It's a great way to extend the use of the stock and the soup that you made before. Well, after you make all this, you still have the bones left. What most people do is they throw it away. Well, those bones have been cooking for quite some time and they actually are completely soft and disintegrate. You can even take it one step further and put them in a blender or a food processor and make them almost silky smooth. It's almost like a mousse. but you can feed that to your dogs and cats with absolutely no worry of there being any issues with them choking on bones because they've disintegrated. Again, a really great way to add nutrition to your pet's food and use the bones that otherwise would be thrown away. Well, if you don't have a pet, what about making bone meal? Dried bone meal is great for the garden, great for your plants, and again, a fantastic way to use something that normally you and I would throw away. What about roast beef or roast pork? Again, when we normally make a roast, we slice it up and we use it. Well, at a certain point, especially if you got something on a killer deal like, $1.99 a pound, you got this huge roast and your family is sick of it. And it's sitting there becoming meat cake. Well, since we don't want meat cake, what you can do with it is chop it up finely, grind it up in your food processor or in your blender, and add it to your spaghetti sauce or to chili. It's sort of like ground beef, just in reverse. It's already been cooked and now it's been ground. Again, a great way to keep from having to throw away anything from that roast, because roast is not cheap and it comes at a cost. Well, what about something like, cauliflower? The misunderstood cauliflower. Most of us use the white part, right? And we use it, and if you're really trendy now, you're making cauliflower rice. Yay, it looks just like regular rice, doesn't it? That's a great way to use it, or you can steam it or bake it or do whatever. But what about those leaves? Most people pull the leaves off, and what do they do with it? They throw it away. Those leaves are amazing. Chop them up, saute them, steam them, bake them. They're a wonderful component to a stir fry. So don't ever throw those leaves away again. What about rice? Okay, this looks like real rice, or was that the cauliflower rice? Okay, cauliflower rice, by the way, doesn't taste exactly like real rice. This is the real deal. Real rice is a great way to stretch your budget. A lot of us use it, but sometimes we make too much. And when you make too much, what do you do with it? You throw it away. Not anymore. What you can do with your cooked rice now is add it some water, blend it up, strain it, and now you have rice milk. Again, a very trendy and fairly nutritious way to have a plant-based, non-dairy beverage. It's great on cereal, fantastic use, again, of the rice that you otherwise would have thrown away. The whole point behind not wasting food is obviously you want to use everything in your fridge, which means, again, you need to make sure you know what's in your fridge. Anything that you think you're not going to use, cook it right away and freeze it. Well, how do you freeze it? Well, let's say you buy a bunch of bananas, and we all know that bananas go bad fairly quickly. Peel them, put them on a tray, individually freeze them, and then once they're frozen, put them in a bag. You see, that's the exact same thing that you can do with bacon, you can do with anything. Freeze it individually, put it in a bag, seal it up. That way you can reach in and grab what you want, and it's not just one big block. Now here's the point behind that though, is if you're freezing extra food that you've purchased, you need to make sure that you label it and date it, and preferably try to use it the next week, because I know there's so many people that have great intentions, but what they do is they do all this, they put their food into the freezer, and then they forget about it. And then what do? They throw it away. Well, never again do I want you to be throwing food into the trash can. Composting, if you have food that you will not eat, is the next best thing. If you can compost all of your vegetables, not your meat products, but your vegetables and fruits and grains, you not only are putting them back into the soil, but you're enriching the soil and again, keeping this all out of the landfill. This is incredibly, incredibly important. Now, I have a question for you. How many times have you looked at a can or a package and said, oh, it's almost expired, or oh, it's past the date, and you throw it out? Okay, those expiration dates are relatively arbitrary. Most canned goods, they have a shelf life of at least 5 years, especially if you keep them in a cool, dry place. Sometimes it can be even more than that. Don't throw something out just because it's past the expiration date. Does that make sense? I hope so. I hope that gets your attention. Now, I have a question for you. What if you walked outside your door, so every 3 weeks, and there was a $100 bill sitting there? How excited would you be? pretty excited, right? I don't know about you, but if I see $1 on the ground, I think it's like the most amazing thing I've ever seen, let alone $100. How could you find an extra $100 right outside your door or right inside your door every 3 weeks? Well, let's go back to that $1,600 that every family wastes in produce every year. If you didn't waste that produce, that would be at least $100 about every 3 to 4 weeks that your family will save. So inside your refrigerator door is a $100 bill waiting for you to pick up and put away. But I guess that decision's going to be up to you now, isn't it?